Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and I have some interesting guests in the studio today to talk about a very interesting topic, and that is parental alienation. What is it? Well, we're going to find out as we have with us today Mary Martin. She's a therapist in this area, and Diane Firestone, who is a parent who has experienced some of this. So welcome, ladies. Nice to have you both. And Mary, what is it? What is parent alienation?
Well, it's a syndrome, which means it's a combination of a lot of behaviors that ends up resulting in one parent alienating the other parent in the relationship with the child. There are a lot of behaviors that contribute to this, but the result is far-reaching, is that it can affect generations after that in the way you relate to other people, especially your loved ones.
Is it common?
You know, a lot of people talk about parent alienation in regard to divorced couples, but I've seen it in regard to families that are intact. If a wife is not supporting her husband and aligns with the children and makes jokes about the husband, which is very common on television.
Right.
And or the father is putting down the mother, calling her stupid, not showing respect, as parent alienation can happen within an intact family. Wow.
All right. Let me just say also that April is Parent Alienation Awareness Month, and then and Diane, you mentioned me on the 25th is what?
Bubbles of Love campaign.
And what is that?
Well, on Facebook we have a group of 4,000 people, and we're trying to make people aware that what they're going through, being alienated from their child, that they're not alone. And some people don't even know what it is they're going through. They can't give it a name. They just describe it and I go, oh, I know what that is. And so on April 25th, we're trying to make that the National Day of Parental Alienation Awareness. And I'll be in Grants Pass between the 25th and the 1st of May doing a Bubbles of Love campaign, and we'll have bubbles, and you come with your children or your family, or just stop by and blow some bubbles for the people that you miss that you're alienated from.
Whoa. Boy, okay. We'll get some more information on that too on the Dove website. So you are a parent that experienced this.
Yes.
What can you share with us?
It's really difficult. What I see on the parents aspect is the courts in Oregon don't understand it, and we get dismissed. We're told you're just a jealous parent, or you're just angry over the divorce, and they just don't get it. And when you try to explain it, or it's actually diagnosed, they say no, they never said that. They're wrong. And you know, usually the alienator is the one that's getting custody of the children, and so the alienation just continues. And the child misses out on half of their family. They don't see their grandparents. They don't see their other brother and sister that's still with a family member. They aunts and uncles that they used to love and adore, and family reunions. It's all gone.
Wow, Mary, how do you spot this? What are some of the signs that you would say look for as to whether or not you're being alienated?
Oh, good question. The symptoms are kind of in a range, because a healthy family, you may see some of these symptoms, but when it's parents are being alienated, it's more to the extreme. So what you're going to see is a child being the rescuer to a parent. So the parent ends up being a victim, and then the child is expected to be the rescuer, and then the other parent is seen as the perpetrator. And so there's a very unhealthy dynamic going on, and structural type work in therapy is one of the ways that we treat this.
Do couples ever willingly come in and say something's going on here and we need help? Or
oh, yeah, but they don't know that this is what it is.
Okay, so it's kind of like the stealth problem, huh?
Well, children act out what's going on in the home. You know, when you have a child that is chaotic inside and doesn't know how to regulate their feelings, and they start causing a lot of chaos in the family, that's when you start bringing in, or there's complaints from the school or from neighbors or whatever, that's when a parent will bring in a child. Or if a child starts threatening things like cutting themselves or not wanting to be here, is a good parent will bring a child into counseling.
So usually the parent brings the child in, and then you as the therapist realize, wait a minute, the child's just playing out a problem between the parents.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes that's what it is. Not all the time. Yeah.
Wow. Is it most radiant as a result of a divorce or a process of a divorce?
I'd say that parent alienation is usually seen within that context, but as I've said, I've seen it outside of that context, in an intact family as well, where the mother will complain, or the mother will usually complain that the kids don't respect her. The father will complain, and it takes a little longer for the father to admit this, but the father will tell me that he doesn't feel that he's a part of the family, that he's kind of out on the side while the mother and the children are over here. So,
boy, this opens up so much. I want to come back to you just for a moment, Diane. When did you realize you were in this problem, in this mess?
Well, I didn't know what was going on at first, and most parents don't know. It just suddenly hits you, and the children become very volatile and abusive towards you, and you're trying to figure it out. And it took quite a few months to figure it out and give it a name. And then when I did, there wasn't anybody here that understood it.
Did you reach out for help?
I did, and people will tell us, some therapists that don't understand it will tell you, you're a good mother, you'll figure this out. And or if you ask for books. We don't have any books on this. You ask for material. I don't know what you're talking about. So you have to do your own research. You have to go out and look for it. So I've done many parenting classes, read many books, paid for my own seminars on how to deal with children with anger issues.
Mary, I can't imagine what we're doing to young minds as it relates to not only the relationship between one parent and the other, but what we're conditioning to be when they grow up to be adults in their own relationships.
Oh, yeah, you got it. Absolutely. Is that what I end up seeing is that there are really dysfunctional behaviors in attaching to other people, relating to other people, that are learned from this parent. And from the whole dynamic between the two parents that they end up carrying on. Then if there's no intervention, they repeat it with their partner down the line.
Again.
Down the line, And then one of the key issues here is there's a lack of boundaries in the family and between the parent and the child. And that ends up, when you're raised with that, you become kind of blind to what boundaries are supposed to be, and so you end up passing it down the generations.
All right, before we run out of time, where can people get help on this? I mean, you're the therapist. Do you do seminars, or how does this work?
No, I don't do seminars on it. I don't think anybody would come.
Yeah. Well, okay, I realize it's that personal, but
yeah.
But you are a therapist, and you do get involved in this, and her name is Mary Martin. All right, let me ask you this. It appears that, I'm thinking back on some counseling sessions I've been involved in where this obviously was the case. I just didn't know it had a name. But what really surprises me is how one parent will use the child as a pawn against the other. I mean, at what point does this person lose their mind, so to speak, that they would use an innocent child to get at the person that they have a disagreement with?
Well, you know, one of the terms, Diane has been educating me. I knew how to do therapy with them, and I've come across it, but Diane has gone in and done the research and has shared the research with me. This is a very new body of knowledge that has come out. Yeah, yeah.
So something happens in a relationship first, Diane? Is that what happens? The relationship between the parents break down before they start pawning the kids between one another?
Well, I think so. Usually the parent that the children are being alienated against are called the target parent. And then you have the alienator. Usually the alienator has a personality disorder of narcissism or dependency personality and things down that line. And it's really, when you see the kids modeling the same behavior, and I see it in our support groups on Facebook all the time. I see it, and it's when they model the behavior, you have to figure out how to undo that. So they've actually have books out on how to reconnect with their children, how to overcome the alienation, how to bring the kids to the other side, because kids have mental breakdowns. They commit suicide. Parents commit suicide because they never see their children again for we didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. It's really sad.
So where can people get help? We're about out of time, but where can people get help on this?
On Facebook, there's a Facebook page called Parental Alienation, mm-hmm. and another one called Alienated Parents Never Surrender. And the only attorney I found in Oregon so far that deals with this is Jay Taylor, Family Law. She's in Eugene. And the therapist that we have is, we have Mary Martin, we have Dr. Kuda, and we have Dr. Morell. Those are the three that I found here that really can get a handle on it. And they're not afraid to approach it. Right. I didn't find any help through our legal system.
Wow.
And I would never recommend going to CPS because they don't get it.
Okay, well, there you go. Thank you both, Mary and Diane, for coming in. Fascinating, and we need to get more awareness out on this, and this is the month to do that. And again, April 25th is the what you call Bubbles in Love Day, so check that out on the Facebook page as well. Thank you both for coming in, okay? We'll see you back here in just a few moments.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Well, starting today on the Dove Radio, we have a brand new program that's going to start airing at 2 o'clock this afternoon, and it's a live call-in show produced by Focus on the Family. It's called Everyday Relationships, and we are delighted to be one of the sponsoring networks with all the Dove television or with all the Dove radio outlets to air this program starting at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Everyday Relationships. It's co-hosted by Susie Larson and Dr. Greg Smalley. Dr. Greg Smalley is in charge of marriage relationships there at Focus on the Family. And I think you're going to find the program to be absolutely fascinating and an opportunity for you to call in and ask your questions as well. It's fun, it's light, it's got some humor mixed into it. At the same time, they certainly take on some very serious issues. Well, my interview today is with Susie Larson. Susie is one of the co-hosts of the program, and her own story is absolutely fascinating. So join me now as we talk to Susie Larson. Well, I am so excited today to have somebody with us who's now a new host on the Dove Radio. Susie Larson's with us, and she's co-hosting a brand new program entitled Everyday Relationships with Dr. Greg Smalley. And you can hear it on the Dove Radio at 2 o'clock live in the afternoon, and it's a call-in show, and we've Skyped her in today to talk about it. Hi, Susie. How you doing?
Hey, Perry. I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing fine. First of all, congratulations on the program. We're delighted to be a part of your network, and how's it going?
It's going well. You know, our goal is to enjoy life, to laugh a lot, but also to offer great biblical content. And that's what we're doing. And so we really want it to be like a safe place for people to show up, get equipped in their relationships, but also laugh a little bit too. So we're excited and it's going well. Well,
I'm just honored that we can carry the program. And again, it's heard on the Dove Radio live 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It is a call-in show, so you can talk to Susie and Dr. Smalley anytime and pour your heart out to them. Susie's also authored a book called Your Beautiful Purpose, Discovering and Enjoying What God Can Do Through You. There's a picture of it there on the screen, and let me encourage you to check it out. It is put out by Bethany House, so you might want to look at it at Evangel, or check it out at Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com. Now, when you wrote this book, you kind of had women in mind. Now, we guys, we have purpose, don't we?
So do, and I'm glad you asked. In fact, it's so funny. I've received a number of emails from men kind of covertly saying, okay, I don't want to say this out loud, but I cried through the book because it just wrecked them in a good way, where it's like it showed them I have to align my life with the purposes of God. And, you know, my speaking and writing audience is women. My radio audience, of course, is men and women. But yes, and so I am hearing from men who are saying, I'm getting a lot out of this, even though I know you aimed it for women.
Well, you know, we know the scripture where God talks about he laid out in advance for something for you to do, that purpose.
Yep.
Is there a single purpose or multiple purposes for people?
Boy, that's a great question. The way that I've really discovered it is it's multifaceted. The very first and foremost purpose for each of us as people of God is to walk intimately with Him. And from there, we do the next thing He tells us to. And then from there, we give Him access to our story, our wounds, our fears, and our pain. And then if we dare, we ask Him to do the impossible in and through us. And I think, Perry, that it looks different on all of us. Some have a real missional outward cause and purpose that God designed them for, but I don't think everybody does. My mentor, that woman spends 3 hours a day in the Word. She's a very hidden woman, but she influences a number of us who are influencers. And nobody will know about her, but heaven knows about her, and she's fulfilling her purpose. But what I will say is for all of us, our impact and our influence is to grow steadily as we walk intimately with God.
How did you find yours? What led you to yours? You're obviously doing it.
Yeah, you know, I really feel like I am doing what I was meant to do, but it started, I honestly have to say, I think the enemy sees our potential before we ever do. And when I was a little girl, I was about 9 years old, grew up in a great family, big family. I was actually, I'm going to just tell you a very personal part of my story. I was in the laundry room getting a change of clothes. I had 3 big brothers and 3 sisters. My brothers had friends over, and my parents weren't home from work yet. And I was not in the mood to be chased by a BB gun and, you know, the brother things that brothers do. And so I thought, I'm just going to get a change of clothes. I'm going into my bedroom. I'm going to shut my door, read a book till my mom gets home. And I'm digging in the dryer, and the door shut behind me. And it was a few of my brother's friends, and my brother wasn't around. We had a big house. It was kind of Grand Central Station. Within a few minutes of that time, those boys had me pinned on the floor, and you can imagine what happened. And it wrecked my life. And in that same year, about a year later, I was walking home from school and jumped by a different group of boys and beat up really bad. And so those 2 things marked my life, Perry, in a way that made me feel like you're not safe. You don't matter. I had multiple dreams of screaming and no sound coming out, almost like your voice doesn't matter. And honestly, I believed those lies in the depths of my soul. But I had some physical ability. I was an athlete. I could sing. I could do different things. So once I got into junior high and high school, I just became a performer, a striver to make up for that lost cause I believed myself to be. And long story short, in our early years of our marriage, married a wonderful, godly man, but our lives are just marked by crisis. Mostly me. I battled this disease. It was like I couldn't strive anymore. It's like God really, almost like when you hear about the shepherd when he breaks the sheep's leg so he can carry the sheep on his neck. I really feel like that's sort of what God allowed, because I couldn't strive anymore. So I was laid out by this disease. And in that place is where God showed me this crack in my foundation, that I'm not what I do. I'm someone God loves. And in the middle of that place, a woman called from our church, and she said, I know you're going through all kinds of hard stuff right now. She said, but I prayed for you. And she said, God gave me a picture of a platform that He's building with your pain that you're going to speak from someday. So lean in and learn everything and you can in this place, because you're going to have a story to tell on the other side. And I know that's a mouthful and a lot to swallow, but the point being, all of the hardships were sending me a message that the enemy wanted me to believe. But in all the hardships, I realized God was using them to ready me to have a bold, feisty faith to help other people fight through and hang on to the promises of God, even when they don't feel true.
Did you battle something that you wanted to do compared to what you now found out that God's purpose was for your life?
Boy, that's a great question. You know, when that woman called me, I knew what she was saying was true, but it's interesting. When God awakens a desire in your heart, you suddenly notice everybody else is doing it and better. And you know. And
so did you feel like Moses? You were stuttering or something?
And that's what happens. I think two things come up for us. Ambition, where it's like, Lord, how come she gets to do this? How come he's farther along in this? And so you want things to happen sooner than they are happening. Or self-preservation, where things start to happen. You're like, I think you might have gotten the wrong person. And so, that fear and self-preservation kick in. So it's either ambition that makes us want to run ahead of God, or preservation that makes us fall behind. And that's why I feel like the process of preparation and all the battles we face are so important, because God is he makes us wait because he's getting us ready. And so if you look at the hardships as, the financial issues, betrayal, I could be living out my dream if I wasn't dealing with this. Those are the things that prepare us for where he wants us to stand. He wastes nothing, and he makes warriors out of us. I really believe that, where we start to learn to stand on his promises even when they don't feel true.
Well, you're another living example of something I've said so often doing radio and television. That is, whatever God saves you from or brings you through, he usually turns you around and makes you a minister too.
Wow, good. That's good.
But in that process, when you realize, God's calling you to a kind of a platform ministry, how do you handle the comparison of what you do versus others who do it that seem to be more successful than you?
Boy, you're just going right to the heart, aren't you? And all the Can you ask me about closet organization or something?
Well, I could ask fluff questions, but that didn't get anywhere.
Exactly right. I much prefer the deep question. That is so good, because to tell you the truth, Perry, people compare me a lot to Beth Moore, and they mean it as a compliment, but that enemy has used it to just pull the rug out from underneath me, because look at her. I mean, she's just, really, and there is no comparison. Her platform is massive, but what they see in the comparison is we're both blonde, we both like to laugh, we both used to teach aerobics, we both have some sexual trauma in our history, and we're both very passionate about God's Word. But from there, the comparisons sort of stop because of the level that God is using her and the way he's using her as a Bible teacher. I have to tell you that more than once has almost crippled me and made me feel like maybe I should do something else, because I'm not a Beth Moore wannabe, but look what she's doing, and the constant comparison is hard for me. I want to just be me, but I really have learned that we each have a story to tell, as you said, and we each have a way to tell it. And so if we can all be messengers of healing, what helps me a lot is when Jesus said, pray for more workers, pray for more laborers. In other words, don't be threatened by the few, because there's more work than workers. And so whenever that comparison comes up for me, and I hear it about every week, I pray a blessing on her, because I can only imagine what her platform costs her to carry, But then I ask, Lord, show me my story and put people in my path that I can encourage, because this isn't about her and me. This is about his kingdom coming and his will being done.
Now, the subtitle of your book really says a lot, Discovering and Enjoying. It's interesting you'd put that word in there, what God can do through you. Elaborate on that for a few moments.
Well, because I would say that God's will for you and for me, it's our best case scenario. And so part of his will matches the desires he's put in our heart. And so often you hear people say, I almost can't imagine that God would have me do something that I would actually love. Now, this isn't about a self-realization, like be all you can be and achieve every goal you can imagine. It's about walking intimately with God. But in that place, you're going to find that just like Jesus modeled for us, you're not too small for big things, and you're not too big for small things. And in those high and low places, in those places where he calls you to stand that you never otherwise could, or those humble ways he calls you to serve, it is the greatest privilege of all, because that's how our King modeled life. That the King of the universe washed the disciples' feet, and he spoke a word, and people were healed. And so when we start to walk with him, and really man's opinion starts to lose its power over us, where we say, you know what, I'm here for a purpose, for such a time as this, and part of my call all of my call actually will really match who he made me to be. Suddenly it feels like, you know what, his yoke is easy, his burden is light, and this fits. And You know, I would do what I do for free because I love it so much, and I know I'm called to encourage the troops and help people stand in the battle. And so when you start to walk in the purposes of God, you really do enjoy it. You do. And not to say you're not opposed, not to say that you don't have battles to fight, but they're winnable battles. And every single one of them, you come through stronger on the other side when you trust Him.
The book is entitled Your Beautiful Purpose, Discovering and Enjoying What God Can Do Through You. There's a picture of it there on the screen, Susie Larson. And let me encourage you to check it out. It's put out by Bethany House. I'm sure that Evangel can get it for you, or Discount Christian Books in Jacksonville, or even Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com. And check it out. It's a powerful book. And again, the brand new program that Susie and Dr. Greg Smalley co-host on the Dove at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It is a live call-in program. And I love the levity in it, because I just think we're just so cynical these days. Us Christians, we got a lower lip that's dragging on the floor. We got to pick it up and become a better billboard for the Lord, don't you think?
Absolutely. That's our goal. In fact, you said before, there are shows that you listen to that maybe even they subscribe to your same belief system, but if when you're done listening, you're ticked off, it's not bearing the fruit that you want, right? And so we want to be encouraging, but we are going to laugh, because we both love to laugh.
That's wonderful. Susie, you're a delight. We'll have you back many more times. The best to you, and thank you for you and Greg doing what you're doing. We're delighted to carry your program, and let's get together soon again on TV, okay?
Would love that. Glad to be part of your family, Perry. Thanks so much.
God bless.
Bless you.
Hi, that all starts this afternoon for the first time, 2 o'clock here. Everyday Relationships, sponsored by Focus on the Family. Well, coming up, we're going to continue our series on Passion Week. I'm delighted to have in the studio with us today Pastor Larry Jung from the First Presbyterian Church in Jacksonville. So join us.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Well, we are continuing our series, especially this week, as we enter into Holy Week, Passion Week, and I'm really just so honored to have in the studio with us today Dr. Larry Jung. He's the pastor of the First Presbyterian Church in Jacksonville. We air his program here on Sunday, and enjoy your preaching. I usually catch you between services.
Well, thanks for doing that, Perry. I know we've been doing that for years.
Yeah.
And I can't remember how many years, but a long time.
And I remember when you moved into your new building, we broadcasted live that inauguration service, and
you guys were so supportive of us all along there. In our we had that litigation which went on for 6 years, and you guys really stepped up and helped so much with that. We appreciate it. Not only with the prayers, but you went on the air and raised a lot of money for us, and we just really appreciate it.
Well, we just love you guys and love what you're doing out there, and love the facility that the Lord has led you to have, the three buildings and all that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you do that I have become so fond of, especially when you were in the old building, because it was so impacting in the old building, a little bit darker than the building you're in now.
More intimate.
Yeah, it was the Maundy Thursday services, and I was first introduced to those when you hosted them. You still are?
Yes.
So tell us what it is.
We call it a tenebrae service. It comes from a Latin word that means darkness. And essentially what it is during the service, the lights, we have the 12 candles representing the disciples, and they're gradually extinguished until the point where the only candle left is a Christ candle. And it's a very powerful image, as you can imagine, with gradually getting darker and darker and darker, and it demonstrates the abandonment of the disciples, how everybody left, and Christ was left alone there in the garden. And it was just his time with the Father. And, it's kind of as I was thinking about it just a few days ago, I was thinking, God the Father really kind of prepared Jesus, I think, for the cross there, because he was abandoned by his disciples in preparation for the time on the cross when God the Father would turn his back on him and abandon him for that time in which Jesus took all the sins of the world upon himself. And remember how that great sense of loneliness and abandonment that he felt. My God, why hast thou forsaken me?
Yeah.
He screamed out. And just to think that in all of eternity, You know, the Trinity has had this perfect fellowship, you know, between the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. And, but that one moment.
Yeah.
And he, you know, he took this abandonment, this great sense of loneliness that he experienced there, so that we wouldn't have to have that. You know, isn't that wonderful?
It is. The whole week is fascinating because we started last Sunday, Palm Sunday, the triumphal entry. You go to Maundy Thursday, and of course that's the upper room, the Last Supper. You have the meal, the foot washing, the abandonment, and then the great commandment, the new commandment. Which the new commandment, he said, you know, love one another.
Love one another as I have loved you.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you go into Good Friday, which
by the way, that's where that word mandatum comes from. That a commandment.
It's commandment.
It's Latin for commandment.
Right.
And so it comes from that verse, you know, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you.
Right. Yeah. And then we go into, then the abandonment takes place because all 12 are, I mean, yeah, Judas betrays him, but the other 11,
they're all gone.
They're all gone.
That's right.
You get into Good Friday, which is an incredible time. I want you to talk about your Good Friday service. And then there is Easter Sunday, which we, you know, is Resurrection Sunday. And then we forget there's 40 days still going on here before he ascends.
Yeah, that's right.
We forget the ascension.
Those post-resurrection appearances that we have, on the road to Emmaus and all those different places that he appeared. That's right.
All right, let's talk about Good Friday. I'm wondering, you know, do we get the impact of Good Friday?
What we do on our Good Friday service is everyone is given a nail when they come in. And it's completely optional. You don't have to, but at the end of the service, we have a large wooden cross that's laid out, and it's at a level where everybody can of course reach it. You come up and you get a hammer that's up there, and you just hammer your nail in the cross. And it's a very powerful symbol that it was our sin that put Jesus there on the cross. And to hear all that pounding going on is, while the singing is going on, like, were you there when they crucified my Lord? It's just a very moving kind of experience.
Well, the first time I heard the pounding, my heart stopped, you know, and I still feel that when I sense that and I experience that. It's just, there's nothing that's more visual, more impacting than driving a nail into the cross.
Right.
Larry, let's come back to one of the other things. It's one of the ordinances, communion. It all takes place from the upper room, the Last Supper. Have we oversimplified this in our Christian lives?
I think in a lot of ways we have. I think that, you know, the Scripture really encourages us to spend that time of examining ourselves. In fact, that's the title of my message Thursday night, is Examine Your Heart. And Paul encourages us to do that, you know, in Corinthians, to really look at your heart and examine yourself before taking the Lord's Supper. And I think in Corinth, the people were very somewhat casual. They weren't taking it seriously. There was a lot of lightness, and you know, the people there, the Christians there, were just not taking it, I don't think, with the seriousness that it should be taken. And Paul was kind of correcting them. He was rebuking them about that.
So what is it we're missing in that? I mean, because he does say, if you have something against your brother, leave it there and go make that right before you come back. And I think we leave that part out, because the next line says, or you're going to eat and drink damnation unto your soul. I mean, those are tough words.
You bet. You know, years ago, I remember reading back, we have the session books from our church back in the all the way to the start of the church, from 1857.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
And you know, they used to have what they called a preparatory service on Saturday night, where people were encouraged to come. This was before communion was served the next day, on Sunday. And they wanted everybody to come to that service to prepare themselves for the next day, on the Lord's Day, when they would receive the Lord's Supper. So it was, the whole theme of that was, get yourself ready, you know, get your relationship squared away, get your heart ready with the Lord in preparing for the Lord's Supper the next day. So it was obviously taken with a great deal of, you know, seriousness.
Wow. So. What does Passion Week tell us about suffering and submission? I mean, it doesn't fit with the American lifestyle.
Boy, it sure doesn't.
And when's the last time you gone to church and you heard a sermon about, you know, the joy of suffering, or the fellowship? Jesus called it the fellowship of suffering.
Yeah, you know, it's just not a popular topic. Who wants to hear about that? You know, who wants to do that? Yeah. You know, what we want, you know, a lot of us just want to be entertained. We want the easy way. And Jesus's call is very difficult in a lot of ways. You know, take up your cross. daily, and leave your father and mother and your brother, whatever it takes, to come and follow me. And we treat it very casually many times. And
what do you think he meant by the fellowship of suffering? I mean, it's ultimately displayed on the cross. I mean, that's the ultimate sacrifice, submission, and suffering. What what's the fellowship of that?
Yeah. Well, fellowship kind of would indicate that there's more than one, that there's other people involved in this. That's what I would imagine. And it's like, I think he's inviting us, when that term, fellowship of suffering, that he expects those who claim to be his disciples, that there's going to be a cost to be paid. And that cost is a surrender, giving up, yielding, obedience. All of that's involved. And some of that does involve suffering. And we know very well that there are many Christians today suffering. Not so much here in our country, but certainly in selected other countries in the world. And we know about that through Voice of the Martyrs and through these different groups that really try to publicize what's going on. And we've been praying. We always pray for the persecuted church at our church, recognizing that there's a lot of people out there that just don't enjoy the freedoms that we get to here in this country.
As we prepare our hearts for Easter, I mean, how have you as a pastor prepared your heart, and how are you preparing your congregation for Easter? Because if we're not careful, we just come in a nice, pretty blouse and shirt and eat a hard-boiled egg and call it it.
Right. I told our congregation yesterday on Palm Sunday, I said, today is the start of Passion Week, and to make Easter really meaningful, it's important that we walk with Jesus through the events of Holy Week. And so I was really trying to encourage them, of course, to come, participate on Maundy Thursday, Good Friday. And to, what I've done personally is I'm reading through the Gospel of John in those last chapters there, which, by the way, is an incredible amount of material for 1 week at a time. You've got many chapters that John devotes just to the last week of Jesus' earthly ministry. And it's incredible how much, and not just John's Gospel, but the other Gospels as well, how much material in those Gospels, the narrative, is devoted just to that last week of his earthly ministry. And it's a lot. And so, personally, I'm reading through that. I'm saying, okay, Jesus went in, he cleared out the money changers out of the temple. He was teaching in the temple. He was doing these things during Holy Week. And I just want to be walking with him through that.
All right, we'll take a quick break. Pastor Larry Jung's with us from the First Presbyterian Church in Jacksonville. We're talking about Passion Week, Holy Week, and if you don't have a place to go Good Friday, Easter Sunday, or even if you've never attended a Maundy Thursday service, let me encourage you to check it out at First Pres, and we'll give you the details on that when we come back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
All right, we're back with Pastor Larry Jung, and he's pastor of the First Presbyterian Church in Jacksonville. They're in their new facility, and well, you've been there for quite a while now. I wouldn't say new,
well, over 6 years.
All I can say is that it just seems like yesterday going through all of that to get you to where you are. We're talking about Passion Week. Before we run out of time, let's give the times of your services. You have the Maundy Thursday service. What time?
That's at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. And if you've never attended one of these, let me encourage you, just go with an open heart. It is pretty moving. And then Good Friday at noon?
At 12 noon.
At 12 noon.
Right.
And then
and by the way, on the Good Friday service, we do have a lot of community people that come, because I understand there are a lot of churches don't have that particular service. So so we really, it's almost like a community service.
Yeah, I really hope, fast your lunch and go to this. I mean, the two would go together real well. And that's at noon. And then Sunday morning?
Sunday morning we have a 6:30 sunrise service.
Oh, that's right.
Outside.
Yeah, there's been morning. That's
for all the brave people. And then our second service starts at 8:55. We've decided to start it a little bit before 9. Yeah. And so it's at 8:55, and then our third service is at 10:30. So,
okay. Yeah.
We had those 3 services.
All right. Well, there you go. First Presbyterian Church in Jacksonville. Take advantage of one of all of those. They're just absolutely wonderful. I want to come back to the whole message of Easter in this world in which we live. A lot of people believe in God, but when it comes to the resurrection part, they kind of go, yeah, well, you can believe what you want to believe. It's really interesting because they believe in heaven, which is obviously you die and you're resurrected, but they don't believe that Jesus resurrected.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
How do you correlate those two?
Yeah, it's almost like that passage where he says, because I live, you shall live also.
Yeah.
That's kind of conveniently excluded from the text. And yet we know it's right there.
Yeah.
John has it.
Do you think we're entering into a kind of a modern day time of Christian persecution? You know, it appears a lot of people believe, but they don't like Christians.
Yeah, I think
kind of an oxymoron.
I think it's institutional religion that people are skeptical. You know, they've had a bad experience at some part in the past, or they've heard things. You know, it's almost kind of like in vogue to criticize the church, criticize you know, the clergy, institutional religion, and it's really unfortunate because, you know, the vast majority of pastors and churches are doing a great job out there, and they really are.
Yeah.
And, you know, we don't live in a perfect world.
Right.
And we're imperfect people, so what do you expect? You know, the church isn't perfect. I always tell our new members that. I said, if you think you're coming to a perfect church, you better not come here, because we are not.
Yeah.
And so they're, you know, we're just imperfect. So.
How important is the Easter message in today's world? If you were to look at it globally.
Oh, you know, our world is hurting for good news. I mean, it really is. I mean, you just get on your CNN or one of the major news outlets, and I mean, what do you see? It's just a constant barrage of bad news. And, you know, this happened over here, and these guys, you know, and the world desperately is crying out for good news, and we've got it. We've got the gospel, and you know, that's what the resurrection is. I mean, the good news: Jesus rose from the dead. Hallelujah!
Yeah.
I mean, life is possible for eternity because He lives. We shall live also. So.
I want to come back to that moment when the Father turned His back on the Son, so to speak. I don't know, I don't remember getting that in Bible college. I remember going through it, but I don't remember the impact of that.
That's where, you know, that in the 7 last words of Christ, where he's actually quoting from the Psalm 22. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? And where God, the Father, actually turns from the Son because He can't see all the sin of the world being placed upon Jesus at that particular moment in history. And that's where Jesus felt that great sense of isolation and abandonment by the Father. And in all the, if you think about it, with God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit, living perfectly in this union of the three, that's the only time in all of history in which there's been any kind of separation that's existed, any kind of, you know, sense of loneliness or abandonment. And Jesus experienced that for us so we would not have to experience it.
Well, what's so interesting about the impact of that is that Jesus predicts His death all the way through the Gospels.
Right.
And you get up to John chapter 13, or even in Luke, I think it's 22 somewhere in there, where he talks about this is going to happen and you will understand it later. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but he comes. But then all of a sudden you realize he probably didn't know the impact of what he was saying until that moment. Oh my God, why have you forsaken me? I don't know if he knew he had to go to the cross, but I don't know if he knew. No, I think he did, because I think that was this great struggle in the garden, was that he knew that he was going to have all the physical trauma, the tremendous trauma, but the really great pain of the cross was when that abandonment, where God the Father turned his back on him. So you think he knew? No, I think he knew the abandonment. Oh yeah. Okay. I think Jesus knew that. Yeah. Because even that, I mean, that even impacts it more, because I don't know if we understand that that's a separation that He took for us that we would never have to experience if we come to Him. That's right. Because I don't, you know, eternity is a long time. Last time I looked, it's forever. you got that right. And can you imagine not making it? Yeah. And, you know, not coming to Christ and being separated from Him. Yeah. That's just amazing. Yeah. And yet the grace of him coming back to the disciples and even Peter and giving him a second chance. Do we understand that?
Isn't that wonderful? I mean there's hope for us. You know?
If Peter can blow it and make it, you know.
There's hope for us. Yeah, that's the message of Peter and those guys. You know, when Jesus welcomed them there, you know, and he loved them, and feed my sheep, and go and make disciples of all nations, and wait into Jerusalem until the Spirit comes. And I mean, over and over, Jesus has given them instruction, but he's also giving them a lot of hope.
Larry, another part of your church that's so interesting to me is that it seems that the Lord has really blessed you as a family church. You got a lot of young families.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think why that's so? I mean,
well, we prayed a lot. We have a great prayer ministry at our church. I mean, we really do. You know, most churches say they have a praying, but this church, and I've been in 5 different churches, and this one far surpasses any of them, because we have people gifted with the gift of intercession, and you know, we have 4 different prayer chains. We have all these different prayer events. Almost every day of the week we have some kind of prayer ministry going on at the church, and we pray in people, and everybody's there by design. Nobody's there by accident. And one of the prayers that we pray is that God would make us a multi-generational church. And you know, I've discovered that a lot of times the older people will just come almost naturally.
Right.
But you have to really make a special effort for the younger ones. And so that's what we've done. We've got a fantastic children's minister in Janet Christian, who's been on I think your show.
Yeah, just the other day.
And Janet has been with us for 20 years. One of the great things is we have people who've really been with us a long time. We've got a lot of longevity on the staff. And I just think it really shows the grace of God. God's been very gracious to this church. And, you know, we really have a great leadership staff.
So what's next for you guys? I mean, are you...
Well, you know, we're almost down to paying off our debt. We're really close.
Really?
We have $29,000 to go on an over $5 million project. Isn't that great? Isn't that...
Well, that gives me hope. I was telling you before we went on the air, I said, well, we're a size 12 and an 8 shoe. We got to get out of here. We got to move. But I look at prices and I just... How did you ever get the faith to do that?
Oh, it took that. It really did. And I mean, we launched our first fundraising campaign before we even had the permits to build. And I think God honored that step of faith.
That was the getting out of the boat, huh?
That's right. Yeah, and He honored it. I think He really, and He has been honoring it. And I think once we get the debt paid off, which should be coming probably by this summer, one of the visions that God has given me is to plant another church here in the Rogue Valley.
Really?
And you know, we need another EPC, another evangelical Presbyterian church here. And there's parts of the valley that don't really have many traditional churches. You know, we've got a lot of non-traditional, non-denominational churches. Yeah. But there's a lot of value in being in a connectional church. And I think there are people that are looking for that kind of connection too.
Well, we do a lot of research on why people do what they do as far as media is concerned. One of the things we learned was that the younger generation are looking more towards the ecumenical structure of a church. They want that in the service. They want that in their liturgy. They want a little bit more structure. I don't know why, but it seems to attract.
It's kind of interesting, huh?
It's
kind of gone back the other direction.
They've gone full circle, yeah. You know, they want a more...
And maybe that's why we have some more younger people coming now, is that they're looking for... Actually, we've had some of them tell us that.
Wow.
Some of them come from Catholic traditions and other traditions where there's a lot more formal.
Yeah.
And, you know, and they're looking for some of that structure in that liturgy. Yeah, you're right.
Well, close it. You got 1 minute to preach a sermon.
I just, you know, I would say this to the viewers, that Holy Week will mean so much more to you if you can really walk with the Lord in the events of the week. And, you know, to find a Maundy Thursday service, you go to the one at your church if you have one. If not, you're sure welcome to come to ours, or a Good Friday service. You know, make an effort. And it does take time and energy to get to these services.
Right.
You know, especially if you have kids or something, you know, and young people, and it does take effort. I know that. But Easter will mean so much more to you next Sunday if you've walked through the week with Jesus. So I would really encourage everyone to make that a priority this week.
All right, Thursday is at 7, Friday is at noon, and then Sunday morning, if you're an early riser, 6:30.
6:30.
And then
8:55
right.
and 10:30.
All right, 8:55 and 10:30. That's 5 minutes to 9, John Esser, in case you don't know what time it is. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.